All right, just just discussing that the weak measurement experiments have demonstrated anti-gravity, or what they call a repulsive, gravitationally repulsive force, and they say they want to apply this to gravity. So this, the way to apply this to the macro scale is to maintain the non-commutativity, because the non-commutativity bypasses the decoherence of the wave function, because you no longer use a wave function, so there's no longer a requirement for the collapse of the wave function. So this is what Basil J. Hiley focuses on, is that in quantum biology, the dismissal of non-locality is because it's assumed that at the macro scale, the wave function collapses and you lose the quantum entanglement. But non-commutativity demonstrates that you do not lose the non-locality or entanglement at the macro scale, that the entanglement isn't inherent to the non-locality, and it can be scaled up at the macro scale. And essentially what you're doing is you're converting the negative photons into a coherent anti-gravity force that's based on active information from the future. So it is a negentropic, negative entropy active information that is then stored as a anti-gravitational force. And we know that the magnetic force originates from virtual photons. So the negative frequency as virtual photons are then experienced as a magnetic force in the body, internally stored in the body. That's also a negative entropy force. So it's an active information with anti-gravity, negative entropy. And as I said, this has already been demonstrated in the weak measurement experiments. And the way to scale it up is through practicing the non-commutativity. So, for example, let me just move because this light obviously is messing with me. So the body and the mind are trained using visualization that's non-commutative. So, for example, the outside of the hand is yang. The outside of the hand is yang, and the inside is yin. And the upper body is yang, and the lower body is yin. So this broke. So the practices rely on that secret of the yin and yang energy channels in the body and the mind. And this is what my training manual goes into, is the difference between the yin and yang energy channels based on the level of the frequency in the body. So you have the Jing, which would be the physical energy And then the yang and yin qi is in the blood and the cerebral spinal fluid. That's based on the protons and the electrons. So you can have ions as yang and yang, qi, negative and positive ions. And then you have what's called wan qi, which is the virtual photons creating this magnetic force from a time reversed signal. So the wan qi is then stored in the body. And if you store up enough of it, then the body achieves levitation. And this is what my own teacher achieved when he finished his 28-day full lotus meditation in the cave at Mount Qingcheng over 20 years ago, or almost 30 years ago now, and 28 years ago. And in the West, St. Joseph de Cupertino is the most famous example of levitation, where he was documented with over 90 testimonials by people who did not support him. They were testifying against him, but they were documenting his levitation. And so what happens is that because it's a time reversed signal, then when you open your eyes, you experience a speed of light reversal of the energy externally as a laser healing. What's called Shakti in India, or it's Wan Qi as the Wan Shen in Taoism. And it can also be experienced as Yin Shen at a lower level, at the psychic level, with the Yin Qi from the Yang Qi separating out, but it separates out from the Wan Qi. So the more you meditate, the more you store up the Wan Qi. And it's important to rotate the eyes when you're meditating, because that's the Yang Shen and the Yin Shen that then get rotated with the Yin Qi and the Yang Qi. And this is explained in chapter 6 of the Taoist Yoga, Alchemy, and Immortality book about rotating the eyes to then build up the Wan Qi, which is then swallowed back down into the second brain as the lower energy field or elixir field, the lower dantian, which means elixir field, which is in the small intestines. And our original human culture emphasized the small intestines as the greatest source of ngum in the body, which is their name. Ngum is their name for Shakti or Wan Qi, as it's known in India and China, respectively. And so, as I said, the weak measurements now have experimentally provided the data that proves anti-gravity is real and can be documented and demonstrated in the weak measurements experiments. And what this means is you're using entangled matter or photons, and as long as you can maintain the non-commutativity, then you're able to store up the energy and build on that anti-gravity active information that is negative entropy. So it's a coherent, what Louis de Broglie called the law of phase harmony. So most people want to utilize this as some kind of warp drive technology for aircraft propulsion as time travel. And the problem is that you have to the human body has the yin yang channels as a metamaterial, which has a negative refractive index, and so the engineering challenge is to somehow create this negative refractive index as a way to condense the broadband negative frequency into a energy density that then has anti-gravity propulsion. And I have no idea if this is possible. I don't know, but I do know that that this is how life on Earth works. And so all of our technology so far has been against this negative entropy. As Roger Penrose points out, the gravitational entropy is the opposite of the entropy of matter. So as we try to decrease the entropy of matter with technology, we are actually increasing the entropy of gravity. And so it was pointed out recently by somebody online that Newton's gravitational law is actually a time dilation. It's based in time dilation. And so the anti-gravity is also a time reversed signal with the negative frequency. And so this is why by increasing the gravitational entropy, we're actually accelerating time as biological annihilation against all life on Earth with all of our high technology. So the anti-gravity is actually inherent to being alive, and as the gravitational potential, what's normally called dark energy, but it's actually these from the photons, because all matter is actually made of photons, but the photons have gravitational mass. And so this is because you can't trap photons in a box with a center of mass as an average. And so instead you have the photon mass from the momentum due to time and frequency being non-commutative. And so therefore the gravitational mass is from an anti-gravity that has an asymmetric time shift with the frequency. So you have this eternal nonlocal asymmetric time and frequency that is the source of the power of the photon. And so that's why when you measure the entangled photons, then you can document that there's this anti-gravity repulsive force that's guiding the photon from the future. And that's what people traditionally consider to be religion or spirituality. And so this is the secret of also being alive, because then the matter is actually organized by the photon signals that then derive their energy from the future as a negative entropy. So that's what causes life to develop into a complex form. And so in meditation, what you're doing is you're turning the light around back to its source in order to reverse that unfolding of the time of life. So you're able to then reverse aging and also enable longevity and healing, and then eventually like levitation and even a creation of another physical body. And that's called bilocation as a Yongshen, and it was documented in a Punjaji's memoir about his experiences with bilocation. His memoir is called Nothing Ever Happened, and it's also documented in the memoir, the biography of Saint Joseph de Cupertino, that he also had bilocation. And so this is a rare property of ability of this active information from the future, because the person, by turning their light around, they're able to maintain this future and the past overlapping before space-time. So within space-time, when you observe space-time externally as a linear time, then you're always going to have a slightly different space-time. And but if you're able to access before space-time, then you're able to create matter that then can manifest in these slightly different space-times. And in quantum physics, this is called the quantum Zeno effect, because essentially you're preventing the collapse of the wave function by turning the light around at a faster rate than the actual measurement of the particle. So if you just never measure the particle and just stay in the meditation mode, then you're able to create new matter based on this active information from the future. So this is what the weak measurements are delving into and documenting, that this is an anti-gravitational active information that's guiding matter from the future. And I will link the study in the description. This is a new study that I just discovered this morning on that discusses again that the weak measurement has documented a repulsive gravitational force. So it's an anti-gravity force. And that's basically all I have to say, that the weak measurements, they enable you to have to manipulate the non-commutative, to work with the non-commutativity based on the Heisenberg matrices before you have any collapse of the wave function. And so you're able to measure both the momentum and the particle from the future and the past by maintaining this photon entanglement. Or they're going to work now with argon to entangle argon. So this demonstrates the principle of how anti-gravity works, and it's actually manifested on a macro scale as levitation in quantum biology. So another good source is Fra Archon Moon. If you read his biography, he's the most famous Thai Buddhist meditation master, and his biography is free online. And he discusses how his meditation partner started to levitate, but as soon as he had the thought that he's levitating, then he'd fall back down. So he had to train his mind to maintain this visionary state without any thinking. And when you maintain the visionary, by turning the light around, you're essentially preventing the collapse of the wave function from thinking. And so if you're able to, like, it's like a photograph that like a snapshot, like a strobe light, you know, so you're constantly emptying out your thoughts through this focus back into the source of the light. And this is what they call nirvikalpi samadhi. And so if you can maintain that nirvikalpi samadhi, and focus it back into the body, then you will experience the levitation as that energy is stored up in the body. So that's how the levitation works. But of course, eventually at the end, then the body is transformed itself back into the formless active information itself. So the whole body will just disappear. And that's like the final stage of the meditation. And then this is what Babaji achieved in the Kriya Yoga lineage. So he has a eternal Yang Shen, or golden immortal body, that then will just manifest physically in the Himalayas, where there's pure energy, when Babaji is needed to manifest. And the golden immortal body is also achieved in the Taoist alchemy training, and it relies on what's called the Fa Shen, or the Dharmakaya in Buddhism. In other words, that's the Wan Chi, is the Dharmakaya, which means the blue light has to absorb the negative frequency as the virtual photons. So the blue light, when you see the blue light internally, that's your soul manifesting. But as you focus on that blue light, it's converting the red light, lower frequency blockages of the yin chi, into increased yang chi of the blue light. But as it does that, then it's also absorbing the negative frequency, which then builds up the golden light as the external yang shen. So externally, people will see the golden light, but internally, you are seeing the blue light that's absorbing the Fa Shen, or Dharmakaya, which is this negative frequency virtual photons from the future. So that's how the meditation process works. And this was demonstrated experimentally recently by Sir John Pendry's research group. He has a paper on the Archimedes screw of light, and also a black hole simulation. So he's discussing how when you're using negative frequency, then you can absorb the virtual photons and increase the photons, thereby violating the conservation of momentum. And that's what the de Broglie law of phase harmony does, is that the pilot wave violates the conservation of momentum, because because the momentum's directly proportional to the frequency. So you're constantly converting the negative frequency into a anti-gravitational force, that then will create new matter as photons from the photons, because all matter is made of photons. And so the violation of momentum is occurring by not having any external measurement. So it's before space-time exists. And that's what samadhi means. When you stay in the nirvikalpi samadhi, your mind is visualizing the source of the light by listening to it. In Tai Chi, this is called ting. When you listen with the standing exercises, you're listening to the source of the light. So even though you visualize light internally, you're actually listening to the source of that light. In Kriya Yoga, this is called the Om of light, the AUM of light, because it accesses the Turiya, or the fourth state of Om, which would be the beyond the deep, dreamless, sleeping state. There is a formless awareness that is the source of the sound of Om, and also the source of the light. So that's why it's called the Om of light. And it's achieved through logical inference. So in other words, all your I thoughts are based on the source of the I thought, which is the source of the light that you listen to. And that's what the logical inference is, as the training, which is called vichara in Advaita Vedanta, Indian jnana yoga, mind yoga. It causes this transformation of the body and of space-time. So that's from the Indian and Chinese Taoist traditions, and then it was also practiced in ancient Greece as the logos, using the ion, which means time, as energy, that as Kundalini energy, which they call the snake master, and that's what Pythagoras means. And you visualize fire as under the water in the body, and then that turns into steam. And that training, it goes back to our original human culture, which called the ngum is also the snake energy, the rainbow snake energy. So it's the same exact teaching. So the lineage goes back over 70,000 years, and it just got lost with the creation of modern science, starting with the Greek Platonic philosophy. This training got lost. So it's now being rediscovered with these weak measurement experiments demonstrating that repulsive gravitational force is real. It's documented, and it can be scaled up to the macro scale with the non-commutativity being maintained. So this is the secret of the Qigong training, the meditation that I trained in to finish my master's degree at University of Minnesota. And it's based on music theory. It's a secret of music theory that's called 2-3 Infinity, by Alon Khan, the Fields Medal math professor. The secret truth of music is non-commutativity, based on the perfect fifth as both an overtone and undertone at the same time. So it's 2/3 as a C to F undertone, and then 3/2 as C to G overtone. So you have the frequency 3 as G and F at the same time. And that's why you get this non-locality as non-dualism, as it's called, non-dualism, which means not two. So it's a 3-in-1 unity, or what Ramana Maharshi called the undifferentiated triad of the three gunas as no guna, from music theory. So the perfect fifth is Rajas, the perfect fourth is Tamas, and the octave is the Sattva, and from the three gunas of Indian philosophy. And then you have that in Taoist philosophy, where the perfect fifth is Yang, perfect fourth is Yin, and the octave is the emptiness. And so you get this infinite spiral of the perfect fifth and perfect fourth. And the perfect fourth is actually derived from the undertone of the perfect fifth that's then doubled as a new octave, or a new root tonic. So it's not a materialistic fundamental tone anymore. It's a active information that's eternally listened to as the source of the one, or the root tonic, or the fundamental tone, which is also the source of the I thought. So that is the basic concept of the Pythagorean philosophy of the tetractys of 2, 3, and 4, with the pyramid, the 1, 2, 3, 4 as the tetractys, the secret of the pyramid, as anti-gravity, practice in alchemy, and requires fasting for the advanced training. And so that's why it's dangerous and also quite rare. And like St. Joseph de Cupertino, he only ate bitter greens. That was his diet, was bitter greens. And he would have very few bitter greens, and then he would fast several days a week. And he hardly ate anything at all. And that's why he was levitating all the time, along with his purification of his mind and his body. And he also emitted this saintly smell, this saintly odor that wouldn't even come out in the wash. So it was some kind of non-local odor. The source of the odor was from this negative time itself. And Chun Yi Lin, my own teacher, he talks about this too, where he emits this smell that other people can smell. I never smelled it, so I don't know. But I do know that I smelled cancer when I did my advanced training, and I fasted for a week on just half a glass of water. Then I could see the Wan Shen that Chun Yi Lin was creating from the emptiness. It arose out of the top of his skull. I could see the coherent laser light, spirit light, that went out to heal people. And then I could also see ghosts as dead spirits that were floating in to get healed by the emptiness that from Qigong Master Chun Yi Lin. And then there was a fellow who said he had traveled a long way to get special healing, and he was emitting this rotting flesh smell. So then the Chun Yi Lin explained that Qigong masters can smell cancer as this rotting flesh smell. And then as he got healed, then the smell went away. And then later on in his room, he was with somebody, and they were not practicing purity. And then so his smell came back, and he had no idea. Neither did the person who was with him. They couldn't smell it. And so they didn't understand the purification that's necessary for the healing, the spiritual healing. And so his cancer had come back without him even knowing it, because he lost the alchemical pill that had been transferred to him. And I don't know if he got healed again. I don't know what happened. I can't remember. I didn't notice. But this is because as Westerners, we're out of touch with this purified energy that's based on meditation. So just leave it at that. Thanks.